The NFL draft is over, which always means grades come out before these guys even report to rookie minicamp, which I always find a little bit funny. But here we are talking about it, so it's at least intriguing to you guys. So we're going to talk about it. And the Atlanta Falcons, regardless of what we think, have had overwhelmingly negative reviews on their 2024 draft class, headlined by Michael Penix, who many people described as a reach. As well as some of their other day 2 and day 3 picks. A Twitter user, excuse me if I get his name wrong, Renee Bungner, compiled a list of 20 different draft pundits and their grades from Mel Kiper to Albert Beer, the biggest names in the game. He compiled a list of the 20 grades. And the Falcons came in last with a GPA. So, an A is a 4.0, a B is a 3.0, a B plus is a 3.3, a B minus is a 2.7, the standard GPA scale. The Falcons came in with a 1.68. That gets you kicked out of college. That gets you kicked out of LSU, Chase. That gets you kicked out of everywhere, and including the NFL if you're a GM, if that was your grade. The second to last grade, just to give you some perspective, was a 2.25. The league average was a 3.05. Chase, do you agree? Do you disagree? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you couldn't agree. I mean, frankly, listen, I know personally I wasn't as high on Michael Penix. I know we haven't talked about him a lot as a prospect. I do think he can sling the ball. I do think he has an arm. I do think, there's some traits there. Listen, I think the number one thing in every quarterback that you see in all the great quarterbacks is not just necessarily being athletic, but being able to play off script and be able to make plays when the play breaks down. I think Michael Penix does have that. Hopefully he can benefit playing behind Kirk Cousins. I'm not going to write him off because I do think there is a ceiling there that if he can reach it and they can develop him properly, it could be something really good. So I'm not going to totally bash that pick in terms of the prospect, but you have to bash it in terms of the fact that you signed Kirk Cousins and then you went out and got him. It was a hedge of your bets.
That factors into the grade.
It was a cowardly move. That's all. That's straight up what it was. It was a cowardly move about people who care more about their jobs rather than building. With no conviction in the move. They want to act like there's all this conviction. There was no conviction because if there was conviction, you wouldn't have signed Kirk Cousins. You knew Michael Penix was your guy. There were reports out there that he was QB2. There were reports out there that he was wire to wire the guy that you wanted. So if all of this is true and you really believed in them and you really had this conviction, you wouldn't go out there and give Kirk Cousins $180 million. That grade has to be given an F for that. That pick has to be given F for that reason alone, not because of the prospect. I'm sorry, Michael Penix has nothing to do with you. It's strictly because you went out and signed Kirk Cousins for $180 million, and you're trying to tell us you're very convinced this guy's going to be the guy, but you're also telling a different story with your moves. So that's an F. That's an F. Everything else, I like that they went out and got defensive line. We've been begging for them to do that for years. I'll give them, a little boost because of that, even if we don't like the Ororo pick and trading a third-round pick to move up in the second round to grab someone like that. But I'll give them a pass. I'll give them, maybe a B plus for those moves. And then, rounds 5 through 7, I think anybody that's like deciding draft classes and what happens there is foolish. So it's really those 3 picks and the Penix that I'm going to do that. You get an F, you get a B plus, I think, for those 3 picks. So I'll give it, I will graciously give it a C around the C area because I like the defensive line picks and I'm not totally down on Penix, the prospect, but the F, it weighs very heavily in terms of the fact that you signed Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, I think, I want to preface, but it goes against my belief in we're talking about guys who have never suited up in the NFL before. And I say a lot that development in the NFL, really any professional league, is never linear. And what I mean by that is you could suck as a rookie and then explode in your second year, or suck for 1 year, 2 years, or gradually improve and then explode in your third year. There's never a rhyme or reason to the way guys develop. Something just clicks sometimes, especially at the positions. In fact, the Falcons drafted quarterback and pass rushers along the defensive line. That usually takes a couple years to develop. So again, we won't know who these guys are in terms of a grade for several years to come. If you want a graded draft class, go look at the 2021 Falcons draft class, Terry Fontenot's first draft class. And you could argue that's closer to an F than a C because you got Drew Dahlman and Kyle Pitts. Those are the only 2 starters out of a 9-man draft class, I believe. 2 of them are out of the league right now. The other 2 are soon to be out of the Falcons, I would imagine. So if I had to go and just project, I want to project what they're going to be, not what they're going to be today. I'm going to be a little higher because I do think I just did something on it, and we're going to talk about it maybe tomorrow later in the show. I think Michael Penix is set up for success in Atlanta. Whether that success is a Super Bowl, I don't know. But maximizing Michael Penix behind Kirk Cousins and the offensive line and the weapons he has, I think Michael Penix is going to turn into at least a starting caliber quarterback, which is much more than the Falcons have had the past 2 years. So I'm not going to call that an F, though all of Chase's points are right. Like, you can't consider Michael Penix the prospect without considering the Falcons' circumstances. But I'm going to go from a different viewpoint. I'm projecting. I don't know how much Falcons fans trust the new staff to develop players, and that's what you're kind of banking on with Arororo, the second-round pick. Physical specimen, didn't have a lot of production in college. You're basically hoping Raheem Morris and his defensive staff can kind of mold him into that, superstar pass rusher that you hope he can be. I'm going to hold my breath for a little bit. I'm going to go lower, a C minus. Whereas like Braylon Trice, he's already proven might not need as much refining. I'm going to give him a B plus. And Brandon Dorless, everybody's real high on him. He can come in and immediately contribute. And when you get that on day 3, that has to be seen as a success. So I'm going to be a little bit higher on the Falcons draft class. I'm going to give them like a B minus, a C plus. But again, that is almost optimistically viewing the future. Right now, if you argued anything other than a C or below, you're really just seeing everything through rose-colored glasses and just giving the Falcons the benefit of the doubt when in fact they don't deserve it.
Yeah, I want to all right, so back to Michael Penix because that's the big guy and all this, and that's really what's going to judge this draft class. And it should address it. What is, let's say, what would, in your mind, what would Penix have to become for that pick to be like a B? Because like he's not going to play for at least 2 years. Most likely he's not going to play for 3 years.
A postseason berth.
Like that's a B if he's your starting quarterback for the next 10 years.
The Falcons go to the postseason on a regular basis, and he occasionally lifts them up. Quarterback is so hard in the NFL. I mean, you would consider it an A plus if he ended up being Kirk Cousins. I mean, Kirk Cousins is a very, very good quarterback in the NFL. And if you look at the hit rate in terms of quarterbacks taken in the first round, it's beyond poor. I mean, just go look at the 2021 class. Trevor Lawrence is the only guy with his current team. Mac Jones was traded. Trey Lance was traded. Justin Fields was traded. And that was regarded as, one of the historic quarterback classes. If we look at the 6 in this year, odds say half of them are going to bust out. So if he's Kirk Cousins, that's a fantastic pick.
So no Super Bowls, but relevance.
Yeah. Yes.
Relevance.
I mean, Matt Ryan was arguably the greatest pick in Falcons franchise history. Never won a Super Bowl. We were relevant.
Yeah.
And listen, that is the whole point of the Falcons picking him is honestly, like you said, it's cowardly. It's to remain relevant. They're, like I said it yesterday, it feels like they're more scared to be terrible than they want to win a championship. Like they're 1 in, 1 out, 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Yeah.
And I think that would be a successful pick. If he's Matt Ryan, I mean, A plus.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is I don't think he needs that development to become Matt Ryan. I don't think he needs the 2 years sitting behind Kirk Cousins or 3 years sitting behind Kirk Cousins. And then I think you hurt your chances of winning that Super Bowl early, which is going to be your best shot. These 5 years of Michael Penix's contract right here is your best shot because look, it's not just Penix that you have on a rookie contract. You have Bijan Robinson on a rookie contract. You have Kyle Pitts still on just his 5th-year option. You have what's his name? Drake London still on a 5th-year option. Then, you draft all these other young players. You have a lot of young guys. And if he goes out there and he performs well in year 2 and 3, you can spend that money that you just spent on Kirk Cousins on these all-pro pass rushers and stuff and fill these holes that you need. So that's really the biggest issue. So you're wasting your best shot at winning a Super Bowl. But I agree. I mean, listen, if he goes out there and becomes anything like Kirk Cousins and Matt Ryan, who are somewhat comparable players, I think Matt's slightly ahead. I mean, you have to look at it and say, yeah, it's probably an A grade at the end of the day, which hopefully that's what ends up happening.